when I came in, I quickly realized I'm not going after anyone that's in Web 2. I'm really going after people in Web 3.
Today's show is sponsored by Enigma Elements. As filmmakers, we're always looking for ways to level up production value of our projects and speed up our workflow. This is why I created Enigma Elements, your one-stop shop for film grains, color grading LUTs, vintage analog textures like VHS and CRT images, smoke, fog textures, DaVinci Resolve presets, and much more. After working as an editor, colorist, post, and VFX supervisor for almost 30 years, I know what film creatives need to level up their projects. Check out enigmaelements.com and use the coupon code IFH10 to get 10% off your order. I'll be adding new elements all the time. Again, that's Enigma, ENIGMA, elements.com. I'd like to welcome to the show Cameron Van Hoy. How you doing, Cameron?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, brother. I'm good, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You guys reached out to me about what you guys are doing in the NFT space, in the indie film space. And apparently I've now become the podcast to go to for this stuff because I've been doing a lot of these NFT episodes lately. And it's just interesting, man. There's some really cool stuff that filmmakers are finally cracking the code and the technology, and everyone's trying new ways of doing things and figuring things out. I mean, it's internet. It's the internet circa 2001, I think, with this space.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think it's the most exciting thing to happen to independent film in a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we need some help. That's for damn sure. It's rough out there. It's rough out there for the independent filmmaker. So before we get started, man, how did you and why did you want to get into this insanity that is the film industry?
Well, I love the movies. I love the movies. I've always loved storytelling and filmmaking and films and drama from when I was very young. Mm-hmm. I started off as an actor at a very young age. I grew up, I was one of those kids in theater and doing all of that stuff. And then this was in San Diego. And then I got an agent and I was on a show called Hey Arnold. And then I did some movies. I was in this movie when I was 14 where I rob a bank and Burt Reynolds is the police negotiator and Misha Barton is my girlfriend.
Wait, isn't that Cop and a Half?
No, it was a movie called Pups.
Oh, okay. It
was a movie called Pups. And so I had an introduction to Hollywood then. And then, of course, I always had a video camera. I was one of those kids that grew up with a video camera. Mm-hmm. And then I moved to New York, went to the high school for performing arts, continued studying drama, theater, really fell in love with movies there, like world cinema. Up until then, I was in love with Rambo or Indiana Jones or just all the great movies that we grew up with.
Sure.
And Disney movies and all of that. And then in New York, it was at the Brooklyn Library that I started renting all the great movies. And I was going to theater school and was surrounded by the culture of New York City and really dove into world cinema and just fell in love with the movies and was making little films with my video camera. And then I decided I was going to move to LA to make movies. And so I moved to LA and I've been out here making films ever since.
Very cool, man. Now, what made you decide to go into the NFT space with your new film Flinch? What are you doing that's unique in this space with NFTs?
Yeah, so I guess so I made Flinch pandemic, right? I was making it leading up to the pandemic, and then we were doing post-production through the pandemic, and the world really changed during that time. And then I also, even before I knew anything about NFTs, I knew that I wanted to own my movies. I had done a film previous to this, a movie called Tragedy Girls, which did really well. It was in the festivals. It had a great cast. Josh Hutcherson's in it. Craig Robinson's in it. Alexandra Shipp. It's a horror comedy. It was received incredibly well. It's on Hulu now. We have a deal with Hulu. But before that, I did a film that I sold to Netflix or licensed to Netflix. And I saw the business get tougher and tougher for independent filmmakers. These streaming deals worse and worse. And then you have these other companies that come in, license movies for 10 to 15 years. And it's just not, the deals suck. And And so I knew I wanted to own my films, and it just was like, there's got to be a better way. And I was familiar with filmmakers like Jim Cummings and other people who were owning their films, putting them on iTunes themselves, putting them on Amazon themselves, which seemed really great. The idea and the spirit of ownership and like distributing yourself. And, the technology's here now. We can get our films out there, on our own. We don't have to. So, but still, the economics of that is very tough. Those streaming services, those tech platforms don't give you any data whatsoever.
Right.
Their fees are egregious, or just maybe egregious is too strong of a word, but it's not great. And then I learned about, and I've been in crypto for many years, just at buying Bitcoin and Ethereum and tons of other coins for many, many years. So I was always a believer in blockchain, and from early on, and was very excited about it. I always kept my ear to the ground. And I heard about NFTs, and this guy named Naval Ravikant, I like to listen to his podcast sometimes. And he was talking about how the technology of NFTs is really about communities owning projects. And through that community ownership and involvement, the value that can be created and what that really means for the future, and how the future will look more like a world where projects are owned by communities, developed by communities, the values are turned back to those communities, and that this is a real paradigm shift. And that was my aha moment. And I said, wow, you can replace a movie studio with an NFT community, right? Because when I first heard about NFTs, of course, I'm thinking through the framework as a filmmaker, but my first gut reaction was like, well, the movie can't be an NFT. That doesn't work, right? Yet. Sure. Yet. But I was more excited about the idea of community. And so I looked at Flinch and I said, okay, well, I'm releasing this film and I want to do it as a franchise. It's a crime film. And I wanted to do it as a 3-part crime franchise. So I said, you know what? I'm going to release it to an NFT community. I will take the film, I will release it to an NFT community. And then when the mint is complete, we go and make part 2 and then hopefully repeat. And that was the initial thought. It's like, okay, I could build a franchise with a community via NFTs. And then when I started really getting into it and learning about the space and seeing what was happening in the film NFT space and just the NFT space in general, it started really taking shape. And it's been going incredibly well.
So, all right. So if anybody, and by the way, anyone listening who doesn't understand what blockchain or NFTs are, there's multiple episodes on the show that you can go back to and do a search. Because I don't want to just every episode explain what an NFT is and every episode explain blockchain, which is difficult to understand for a lot of people. So it's you got to wrap your head around it. I've done a tremendous amount of research in blockchain and NFTs. I've sold a few of my own NFTs, and it's really an interesting space. But again, it's just very much like circa 2001 internet. Like people are just like, what's a web page? How is the web page working? Like, how can I get paid to do this? There's so many different technologies that are just starting to try to get ironed out. And there is literal, I mean, we're in dial-up right now in the scope of technology. Like we're in dial-up, we're at a really fast modem, but we're still not a DSL or cable or ether, like none of that. So our internet versus, the internet analogy versus where we are with NFTs and blockchain. There's still there is a block in the technology to get it to where we all know it's going to go in 10 years, but it's getting there. Even in the last 3 years, NBC just did a 5-part series on blockchain and crypto, so it's becoming much more in the zeitgeist. So you decided to build a community around a movie. Now, how did you finance the original movie?
I financed it the way that I financed any of my other films, with private equity. Mm-hmm. And some, I've done things with debt, tax credits, foreign sales. This particular one I did with private equity investors that I'd worked with on my previous films.
And then while you were in post, this is when you decided, hey, I think we're gonna try to do this NFT thing. So how are you distributing this film?
So the part 1 exists as like a utility for this project and for the community. So I've put it on iTunes, I've put it on Amazon. I've also built my own decentralized cinema for this project, which works on Polygon, even though the NFTs will be on the Ethereum network. So anyone who is in the Web3 ecosystem and has a smart wallet or a crypto wallet, they can connect to our site, send over 2 Matic tokens, and have access to watch the film there. And also by doing that, you are on our whitelist in order to mint our NFTs. So I have like a Web3 way to watch the film, and then I've put it out domestically via Web2 platforms like Amazon, iTunes, and places like this.
So everybody understands what Web3 is. Web3 is basically the NFT crypto blockchain space.
Right.
Yeah, I say that. I'm just saying it out loud, man.
Great point.
Yeah, because people. I mean, I get you. I understand where you're at, but like a lot of people listen to like, what are they? Are they talking another language? Because if we just start going straight geek, we can go hard, and then everyone's going to just turn off because they're not going to understand what the hell's going on.
It's very interesting. So what I'm finding in this space is, there is a whole culture and economy and community in Web3, right? There are people with smart wallets, crypto wallets, and Ethereum and blockchains and NFTs, and they are operating and they're buying NFTs. They're getting involved in projects. The ecosystem really exists around Twitter and Discord. People are finding out about projects on Twitter, and then they are joining those projects' Discords, getting on whitelists, which is access to buy the NFTs early on, oftentimes for a cheaper price. It's like that, going public moment for a project. And they're changing their profile pictures, they're building together, they're participating in games together. One thing that we've been able to do since we have part 1 complete is we do movie nights for other NFT communities, because this ecosystem we're talking about, this economy, whatever you want to call it, it's very like you said, it's closed off. It's hard to get into. You have to take the time to understand the wallet and set up the wallet the right way, get some ETH in your wallet and start buying and trading. And then you start realizing the community aspect and how these communities rally together to build value by hyping up other projects or their own projects. And then in turn, their price of their NFTs are rising. And then people are playing that game by buying multiple NFTs, right? So there's a lot of people in that world already. I mean, I shouldn't say a lot. It's probably a drop in the bucket, but it's a thing. It's a world. And so, people are building games and metaverses and film franchises like what we're doing, and clothing brands. And there's insane amounts of value being built around these things. And of course, I think the larger goal is that these things the communities build eventually are utilized, explored, understood, or purchased by the general public, right? But within this community, they're building. And so when I came in, I quickly realized I'm not going after anyone that's in Web 2. I'm really going after people in Web 3. So it's like I'm going to a bunch of NFT degens or tech forward thinking people and saying, hey, let's build a franchise together. And this is part 1, and you can watch it. And if you like it, you can be a part of building out this larger franchise. That's how I've kind of approached it.
Do they have part ownership if they buy the NFT?
So the way that it works is they get governance, access, and value, right? So obviously anyone who has the NFT owns their NFT, right? That NFT is owned by them. Our NFTs are generative characters that exist in part 1, 2, and 3 of the franchise, right? They're generative. They're, criminals, crooked cops, femme fatales. We are a crime franchise. And so if you own one of those NFTs, you own the IP rights to that character. What we're doing is the franchise and the larger ecosystem is allowed to use any of these characters at any time within the films that we're making, the games, and any other ancillary that we derive from it. But you, as the holder of the NFT, also have the IP rights over that character, so you can go make a spin-off about that character if you wanted to.
No, really?
You can make a YouTube podcast channel where you're interviewing people in the avatar of that character. You can make your own Instagram account around that character and speak and post in the voice of that character. You can do anything you want. The only thing we ask for is, like a movie studio, is a first right of refusal. We have a first look deal with anyone who holds an NFT. So if you've developed your specific character to a point where you feel there's an audience and a story and lore, and you want to go develop it, you come to us first and see if the community wants to use its community funds within the wallet to finance whatever project you're doing with your character. So that's kind of the ecosystem around the NFTs. And then there's the central franchise that the project makes. So we already have part one complete. We're going to go and do part two. We do that with the community. They're involved in the creative process. They have access to come to all the creative meetings. These things are token gated. You have to hold an NFT in order to get in, right? To witness, watch, partake. In the Discord, like I'm there all the time communicating with everyone, and there's a real team that's building, and people are coming up with lore and ideas and all sorts of stuff happening. We have like location channels where people drop location images and ideas and car images and soundtrack concepts, inspirations. So it's really like creating communal creativity. And then a percentage of whatever comes back from these films, the value from their exploitation, goes back to a community wallet that the community governs. So it's a return of value back to the community, and the community can decide if they want to, say, buy up the floor price of the NFTs, which is subsequently just boosting their price, like returning it right to themselves, almost like a buyback in a way. Or they can put it towards more marketing to get the word out there about the project in a larger way. Let's say we've made part two and we watch an early cut of it and decide that we want more action. Well, we can decide to go back in and do some pickup days with that community wallet, right? So that's how the ecosystem works. And then the goal is to make a native token so that within this franchise ecosystem, we're just, X movie, we license part 1 and 2 to Netflix, say, in a year. Netflix wants to get on the Web3 thing. They license these 2 films from us, put them on the front page, and it's just throwing numbers out. It's $1 million deal. They're excited about Web3. Well, a percentage of that million would just come right back into the ecosystem going wallets. And if we have a native token, it can just be exchanged to that token and airdropped into everyone's wallets. Same with Web3 exploitation, right? Like if the film continues playing, or we are able to build out like a play to earn game, and there's some form of cash flow from that, those native tokens can just automatically, no one has to do anything because of smart contracts in the blockchain, just drop into everyone's wallets. So the goal is that you create this ecosystem in like a real value. Ultimately, so that's
so then all right, so if I can translate, you're building a community of like-minded people who are interested in this franchise. They're buying the NFTs. By buying the NFTs, they are now part of this community. That's their entry point to the community. There are smart contracts that state everything you just said, that blah 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 blah, all that stuff. So then if let's say you get $1 million from Netflix, great. A percentage of that, I think I think I read somewhere, is it 50%? Like goes, yes. So $500,000 goes straight into the community wallet for everybody to kind of govern, and then 500 goes to you guys that set this whole thing up, which is fine. You can actually compare, more than fair. So then let's say there's a video game spinoff. That video game spinoff is bought by Blizzard for $20 million. $10 million goes to you. 10 million goes into the community wallet. And then we start building out and then everything else, other ancillaries, other exploitations of the movie, whatever they might be. When that money comes in, it goes in and splits 50-50, goes into the community. And then you start building from there. So it is in the best interest of the community the token holder, or the NFT holder, to promote the living hell out of this, to try to get the word out, because the more people buy, they have more control of what's happening with the project, but they don't get a percentage. They're not part owners of it. They're part owners of the community. In other
Correct.
words, is that so? That's how you guys are putting it together.
Yes,
it's a very interesting concept. How many NFTs do you have for this film franchise?
We're doing 9,999 generative characters. Yeah.
Okay, and are they all minted already?
No, we haven't minted anything yet.
Oh, you haven't minted anything yet. So you're slowly going to be...
We've just been building our community. So like, obviously in this space, it's very important to build your community first. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to just drop something and have it mint out because you don't have any awareness at first. And the other incredible thing that I've learned about the space is that you're able to build communities of people that want to get in on these whitelists, as they call them. We call ours a hit list because it's about a hitman.
Obviously.
And so there's real value in getting in early. And so you start getting all of these people that are doing exactly what you're saying. And they don't even hold the NFTs yet, but they're building and passionate about building and supporting and promoting and marketing, because having that early access means you're going to get a lower mint price, right? You're going to be one of the early adopters. And so we've been able to build out a really large powerful community. Like, we are one of the leading films in the NFT film space at this point. And I think that's because I don't know what it's because exactly. I think we're doing things right. I think we're using the technology in the right way.
Well, I think it's also, I think from seeing what I saw of your work, I mean, it's solid. It's well directed, well shot, has a good cast, it's a great genre. So there's, it's not like a period drama piece. Like, it really hits within the niche of people who would be tech savvy, would be interested in a crime franchise. They wouldn't be interested in the Saves Christmas movie. Like, that's not probably the NFT ideal. So it is genre based and everything else. I mean, you got Tom Segura in your movie, right?
Yeah.
Who I am like the biggest fan of Tom Segura. I freaking love Tom.
He's great. He's amazing. Yeah, he's amazing. We've got Academy Award nominee Cathy Moriarty, who's phenomenal in the film. Yeah. We've got Daniel Zovatto, who's an incredible young actor. Tilda Cobham-Hervey, Buddy Duress is in the movie. I mean, it's a wonderful cast.
No, it's
that's helped us a lot. Like, being able to enter the NFT space and drop the movie and show them and say, hey, this is what you're signing up for. This is the team that's surrounding this project that's going to help to spearhead this in the right way. Yeah, it's been really helpful for us. I think we're the first that's done something like that.
Would it eventually, and I'm just going to like pie in the sky here, eventually, when the technology gets to where we want it to get to in the blockchain and NFT space, would it be simple? This would be a workflow. Let me know. I want to just throw this workflow at you and see if it works. You would create a community based around an IP, whatever that IP is. And you can have images, sizzle reel, whatever it is. Sell and finance the film through NFTs and smart contracts and get funding that way. Make the movie, then release it on the blockchain, where then anybody who buys or rents or accesses it, when they pay, all the money automatically gets split among all of the investors and yourselves as the creators, all automatically. And then as new revenue comes in, the smart contracts handle all the distribution, and there's no funny business, there's no Hollywood accounting, there's none of that. And there's no middleman. That's the ideal.
That's where we're going. And it's all of the systems are in place. The only one that is probably just not profitable yet is the distribution side of it, simply because that smart wallet, most people don't have smart wallets yet, and they're not operating in this Web3 world. But what is perfectly in place at this point is communities minting, providing the liquidity to the project, and then supporting and building together. That's there right now. That's happening. I think over time, as more and more people become native to this, yes, then that distribution we'll probably see a flip at a certain point where more people are connecting wallets to watch things than they are using the username and password to get in to watch stuff. And when that happens, it's going to be awesome.
But we're still a little while away because we just need mass adopting of this technology.
100% distribution side. And for us, it's important. Like, look, our goal would be to get, 500 screen release in AMCs for the next
Sure.
Time. You know what I mean? Like, and I'd love to see the community like tweeting the hell out of them, saying, hey, we got part 2 ready. Let's roll them out in AMC. And that's a very tech forward thing, with these communities. I imagine a lot of these big corporations and companies are going to want to have a pulse on what's happening in Web3 more and more so as this continues to grow. And I want that. I want the film to play in theaters. I want it to play with a major streamer. I want it to be accessible to everyone. And I think the community wants that as well, right? Because that provides more awareness for our project, more value back to the community. So we're not trying to say you can only watch it in Web3. But I do believe over time, more and more people will watch within Web3. And then what you're talking about, transparency, will become even more
the norm. Yeah, it will become the norm. It's something that's I think the studios will be pretty terrified by it. And the distributors would be terrified by it because basically you could start. I mean, when you imagine if The Rock, who could finance a film if he wants to, does this and goes down the road all the way and does everything we just said, and he pulls in a couple $100 million himself, that's a better deal than he's getting from the studios. It's going to get to that place, I think, eventually. I think eventually it will.
Not only will it get to that place, but there's something new happening here, which I think a lot of people don't recognize, which is NFTs themselves are a new art form. It's a new thing. There are stories being told through these NFTs. There's games being played through these NFTs. Just the process of purchasing NFTs, making them like an avatar representation of who you are, giving them life, giving them names and backstories, and then like purchasing multiple types of NFTs based off of their rarity within collections, and then the groups that are formed around those specific NFTs, and then serums many times, like with the Bored Apes as an example. Like our version of a serum is going to be a burner phone, because in the film, the central character uses a burner phone to get their jobs. There will be a burner phone that has a variety of jobs: smuggle this across the border, take care of this person, be the getaway driver for this job. And you'll be able to mint one of those burner phones. Then if you want to advance your character, your NFT, you will have to burn the burner phone, which is, getting rid of that NFT is sucking it off of the market. But then you advance your character. And this sounds crazy to people who are not in Web3, but there's a lot of fun in it for people. It's a new form of entertainment, and game and investing that we haven't seen before. And I think it's a whole other market outside of just the movies. Just what's happening with characters and serums and playing them against each other and where that can go is a new thing. And then there's this secondary royalty that comes into the project from that in and of itself. So you start looking at a franchise as something that has multiple verticals. There's the movies, but there's also just the NFTs are a thing. They're more than just a way to provide liquidity to make the films.
Right.
No,
it's really interesting because it's the equivalent of where we were, again, I'll go back to like when people were afraid to put their credit cards in the internet. Like they were like, that was the technology. Like now everybody just literally opens up an app and buys whatever they want and it's at your doorstep. But I'm old enough to remember where there was no internet. That's how old I am. But during that, yeah, exactly. So, but you look fantastic, sir. So
likewise.
No, but I still remember like people were like, I can't, there was like full news sections and like, don't put your credit card on the internet. This is what's happening. So that was a complication. I think that as we move forward, NFTs are pretty complicated right now. Everything's a little clunky. The technology is a little clunky. You really need to have your tech in order to even buy. I mean, Coinbase has helped a little bit if you want to buy crypto. So it's become a little easier. You can buy crypto with your credit card, which that's only within the last 2-3 years. That hasn't been like that way always. So it's becoming a little bit easier. From what you're saying in regards to the investment and, getting residual back and all that kind of stuff and gaming within the NFT space, it's kind of like, you're playing Fortnite or Roblox or something like that, but the money that you're buying or selling and making is real money. It's crypto. And you can actually use that in real world purchases while you're playing in the Web3 space. Is that a decent analogy?
That is the whole premise of Web3 is ownership, right? Web2 was read and write, right? Web1, they say, was just read. You could just kind of like dial up and read things. Web2 is username and password to get into a centralized organization that held and owned everything. And you could comment, like, and share, post videos. It was like a two-way street. Web3 is connect your wallet and own. Right?
In theory, what we're talking about is that a movie project could be, for lack of a better word, a stock, a company that you're investing in. And in the grand scheme of things, let's say I'm investing and I want to get a piece of the, there's a piece of the residual payments back, kind of like dividends. So let's say I put in $100. There's that, let's say this NFT, there's a lot of shares, so it can go around. Millions of people could purchase it, let's say. Then as you invest, the movie goes out, it's your best interest to promote it because it's your stock. You're part owner of this. So you're going to put it out. So then the marketing costs start to go way down because now you're putting it all out there. So it's kind of like creating a word of mouth on a project, but you're getting paid for the word of mouth marketing. And then you can invest in that. And then as the movie just continues its pace from now until whenever the world ends and the computers stop working, there's a residual payment that is set up through the smart contracts that automatically, when money is made, it goes right into your account. And you could start investing into any kind of projects you want. So if you wanted to invest, quote unquote, into a Marvel movie, let's say the next Avengers comes out and you can invest $100 in the next Avengers, you might be able to pull $100 back out eventually, or vice versa. But it's a part ownership of the project, as opposed to the normal way of doing things is that there's a studio that owns everything, gets all the benefits of it, and barely even pays the creators. Like, they pay them up front, but they generally don't get paid afterward because of Hollywood accounting and so on. So is that a decent setup?
Yeah, it's democratized venture capital. It's democratized investing and ownership. It's democratizing filmmaking, and it's just democratizing these things that used to be so, there's no way into them. They were operated by these giant centralized organizations, whether it's a music label or a movie studio or a game company or a clothing brand. I mean, you see a lot of these projects now that are building clothing brands, and people are going to wear those clothing because the more, again, that they're promoting that as they're walking around, it's a direct connection to the value of that NFT that you hold, which has a marketplace that you can sell it at any time and see what the market's valuing that at. So yes, communities work together and provide value back to themselves immediately. That's the paradigm shift of it all, Yeah.
It's pretty exciting. I mean, it's a pretty exciting idea. Again, some of the things that we're talking about are available now, but not everything we're talking about because the technology is not there yet. But this is where everything is going. There's no doubt in my mind that this will happen within the next 10 years, if not faster.
No, I think it'll be faster. I mean, we saw all the streaming companies, tech companies, social media platforms just destroy old media, old bookstores, like old retail. It's somewhat, how long did that take? 10, 20 years, right? I think this will move quicker. I think Web3 will rattle those cages because, again, this is about ownership. So if you don't provide that to people, you're going to have a very hard time iterating. And then also your point about communities and the power that they have for marketing. Well, it's almost similar to what happened again with the social media phase of Web 2, where the people who had the followings, who got the likes and got the comments, and they became very valuable, right? They were the marketing juggernauts. Now, so much so that most companies want to spend more on that than they are on traditional ads and traditional advertising, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be the other shift that happens, where people are going to value communities and projects and brands that hold communities. That's going to be the next wave, right? Because once you start realizing that you can directly receive value from the things that you're supporting and liking, I mean, that's a skin in the game, is a drug that's going to be hard to take away from people once they have it.
Right. And it's kind of like where crowdfunding was when it started, but crowdfunding doesn't give you any ownership.
Crowdfunding is patronage. Crowdfunding is, this is completely different than that.
Completely. Exactly. It's more like equity crowdfunding, which is like you're getting a piece of the pie by putting money into the piece. But this is done not by contracts, but by smart contracts, which.
Right. So you're not even trusting anyone. You don't even have to trust the company to make sure that the funds go here. It's trustless. It just happens.
And I think that is how the governments of this world are going to allow this to continue is fascinating to me, because they're literally starting to, once you decentralize money, which is the power of a government, essentially, is to control their money.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Hey, look, I was buying Bitcoin at a very low price, and I was afraid of this every step of the way. I was a big believer in Bitcoin and blockchain, but I was every step of the way just going, they're not going to allow this, right? For that exact reason, right? Dominance over the dollar. And it's so interesting how all these combos ultimately become like an economic, even political conversation at a certain point because it's such a thing. But, they haven't stopped it yet. It's very hard to stop, and I hope they don't because, America's always been strong because we've been able to innovate. And I mean, look, let them tax it, right? They got to get their tax dollars. Let them tax it, but hopefully they let the innovators just, play within the rules, but continue to grow and develop. I think.
I mean, yeah, just El Salvador just made Bitcoin their national currency, so that's pretty insane.
Yeah. It is for sure. I mean, I think America's stance has been pretty cool with it all so far. This guy Gary Gensler seems to be pro Bitcoin and blockchain. We'll see how it shakes out. I think the cat's out of the bag.
Oh no, yeah, you can't put the genie back in the bottle with this, because now we got institutional investments into Bitcoin and into crypto coming in. I mean, we're talking about there's funds, there's crypto funds by major financial institutions. So they're all going to get into it. So, and we're talking about crypto a little bit, guys, because that's kind of like the blockchain's the base, but in order for money to be made, you can't send dollar bills back and forth.
Yeah, through Swift systems or through these old systems with middlemen, right? Like it sucks value out of it. It's friction.
Exactly. I mean, where you can have a crypto wallet that's earning you 5 to 10%. I have crypto right now that's earning 5%. That's better than any bank. Just sitting there. Now, mind you, crypto is a little bit volatile, so that's just a little on the volatility.
But there's another cool thing to speak about as well that's happening. It's also a paradigm shift and a revolution outside of blockchain, which I think these two things happening in conjunction with each other has enabled what's going on here to be so strong, which is Twitter Spaces, Discords, right? It's the communication, it's the ability to communicate. But within Twitter, there's these things called Twitter Spaces, which is so much in the NFT world called alpha. I sound like such a degenerate. I'm a film guy, just talking NFT terms now. But people get together in these Twitter Spaces. It's like Clubhouse, and they're talking. And they're just communicating, sharing ideas. And that ability for us to share ideas so quickly and just communicate and work together and pick up on trends and execute on those trends is fire, right? It's really amazing. And then these platforms like Discord that allow communities to be whole and work together and organize with channels and execute on things as groups, but from around the world. I mean, Flinch at this point has a team of filmmakers, blockchain developers, collaborators, marketing people, devs, moderators, mods. I mean, just so many people from all over the world. And we are every single day, it just doesn't end. It becomes like hive mind where we're using the Discord as the centralized operating space. We did a table read for someone else's screenplay. A lot of directors, writers, people send me their scripts, to look at. And now my go-to is always just jump in the Discord, get involved. So we have all these cool filmmakers that are jumping in there. One of them wanted me to read the script. I said, let's just do a table read with the community. We can Tooken gate it for the community, right? And so they jump in. We cast out of the community. We had one of the actors from Flinch, an amazing actor, Michael Drayer, who's been in everything. He came out, read the lead role in it, and then the rest of the community filled out the other roles. And we read this person's screenplay and gave them some feedback, and for them to hear it, we did it just like we're doing, right? So it's we're working together to build and support each other, and that communication, that connectivity, coupled with live value, whatever you call it, the NFTs being able to in live let the market determine the value of what it is that you guys are doing as a group. It's just wild.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. Now, I also saw that you guys are doing practical or real world products like VHS and a couple other things. First of all, where are you getting your VHSs and how are you getting them done? And secondly, how is that connected to the NFT space?
It's just merch. It's collectibles. So yeah, we made a VHS. We made a VHS. We've made. Here's the VHS here.
Look at that.
We made a VHS. We made a tape cassette.
Yeah.
And the tape cassette has like a digital download. So you can also get the soundtrack digitally. Our soundtrack's done by Miami Nights, 1984, one of my favorite synthwave groups. The soundtrack is fire. We've got CDs, posters, shirts, and the community just buying them and loves them and is repping them. So yeah, it's merch like anything else,
But it's connected to NFTs as well. You have to buy an NFT to get it, or how does that work? No, just normal merch.
Yeah, the merch is just accessible.
So where did you get your VHSs made? I have to ask.
There's one VHS manufacturer left in America. I think they're in America. I can get it if you want. I don't remember off the top of my head, but we dealt with them. Oh, we did a vinyl press too. We have vinyls of the soundtrack.
Yeah, right.
That's also tough to get, a good vinyl press. There's not a lot of companies that do
for independence, but because I see vinyl everywhere now.
Maybe for independence, I don't know. For us, they were just backlogged, and everyone was backlogged. It might be a COVID thing as well, but
that's really so. And it goes along with the kind of film you're doing. So VHS makes
sense. The movie Flinch has a very 90s vibe to it, right? It's got that vibe of a crime film from the 90s, an era and a genre that I personally love, and so all of this plays into the aesthetic of the movie,
That's awesome, man. Now, at the end of the day, what's the goal with the NFTs and the community? You just want to build out 2 more films, and then let's say you get the other 2 films done, and you got a 3-part trilogy. What next? What do you do with this? When that's all played out, what do you do with this community?
No, the goal is to do a film a year, and then let the community just run wild with it.
So it's not just about Flinch. You're building a community based around projects that you want to continue to build out as a community.
So I want to see Flinch go on and become this kind of epic crime Web3 franchise that was birthed of the metaverse, but enjoyed by the world, that the community is constantly adding to. I think very soon the future is going to be imagine a writer who wants to write for film and television now, and they're not in the film business. What do they have to do? Move to LA, New York, and write spec scripts, try to get an agent, try to get them in front of people making these TV shows or movies, and then get hired on to be a staff writer or get their thing picked up to be turned into an episode. I think the future is going to be buy an NFT to a film franchise, get in, write lore for that franchise, get involved in the creative process of the franchise, get hired to write part 8 of the franchise, and then maybe direct part 9 of, you know what I mean? You're going to work your way up within these communities that you're actively involved in, that you understand the lore and the characters of. We're already seeing it in Flinch. All sorts of creative people are coming in that are actors and writers and directors aspiring or working and going, hey, let's build this together. And yeah, I'll read a role here. And can I put myself on tape for that? And I'd like to write some lore for this character. I have an idea for part 2. So I think it'll continue. I think that's the plan, is that it takes on a life of its own, so much to the point where I can step away and go do whatever it is that I want to do next, outside of the Flinch thing. Although my focus now is executing this successfully. But yeah, that's the vision for it. And that's why you give people IP ownership, so they can spin off. Imagine a world where the way that Blumhouse wants to go do a Halloween movie, they have to negotiate the rights for Halloween. Well, imagine a future where they could just buy several NFTs from these characters and make films around those characters within the universe of Flinch, right? If a studio wants to do a mini major, who knows, maybe it'll get there to that point where this IP has such value that people are, you want to make your first film as a first-time filmmaker, make it within a franchise that already exists that you own an NFT in. It's kind of a different way to think about it, but I think it could get there.
No, I agree. It's it's kind of like what Stephen King does with his short films. You can license his short films for $1 and make a short film out of it.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, Stephen, he's been doing it.
His short stories.
Any of his short stories that are not already licensed or sold, you can license it for $1, and all he asks is that you send him a copy of it when it's done.
That's
so then
cool.
you can direct a Stephen King short film to get your stuff going. So it's a franchise, which is Stephen King.
So cool.
And he's been doing that for, I don't know, 30 years. I mean, Frank Darabont did one when he was starting out. That's how old this. That's how he got started with Stephen. It was Frank Darabont did the one short film and Stephen loved it. And then he came up in the business and he called up Stephen again. It's like, hey, can I look at that Shawshank Redemption thing?
Well, that's awesome. And the man's a genius, clearly. And that's what this tech is enabling. I think that's where these call them NFT franchises are going to go. I think creative people, aspiring filmmakers, and working filmmakers. I mean, imagine when a really cool filmmaker with a track record comes in and does part 4 of the franchise for us. The community hires someone dope to come in and take over. It's like, and they take their crack at it. Like, I think that's where this can all go. I hope that's where it goes. That's certainly what I'm gunning for.
Yeah, it's a fascinating place, man. It's a fascinating thing that's happening for independent film, and I agree with you. It is probably the most exciting thing to happen in independent film.
This is where it's at.
Since since the 90s, essentially.
Yeah. People, I always say this, like the revolution isn't in digital technology. Everyone's like, oh, anyone can get a camera and make a movie now. We've had that for like 30 years. You know what I mean? Like cameras are accessible. The revolution is going to be in this distribution and financing. That we can make these things outside of these centralized systems, and hopefully wonderful originality comes out of it.
Right? Because you don't have
these studios they're afraid of originality.
They're afraid of everything. They're afraid of everything. And nowadays, you can't say anything, you can't do anything, and you could be as outlandish as you want. You can go as far off the reservation as you want on these projects, because it's the only person you're beholden to is the community.
By the way, that's what's working in the space right now anyways. Okay, we're not seeing the Looney Tunes NFTs popping off, right? It's doodles, it's Bored Apes, it's Zookies, it's like, Kaiju Kings. It's original things because they're able to provide ownership to people. It's when you provide that ownership that you rally communities around them. And so we're already seeing the birth of originality. So I think it's going to be really exciting as more and more films and filmmakers come into the space and use this tech in this way. The originality is going to be off the charts again. It's going to be like the 90s again. We're going to be coming out with bangers left and right. And people are like, oh, snap, like that was dope,
Back in the day, back in the day in the 90s, it was like every month there was there was Robert, and there was Tarantino, and there was Burns, it was Spike Lee, and the list just goes on and on and on.
The list goes on.
It was like every month.
Just so much stuff. Aronofsky and like Fincher and just like
everybody.
Like weird little franchises like Spun and like The Way of the Gun and like just all kinds of. It was the Wild Wild West. Yeah, it was dope.
And they could do whatever they wanted back then. Because it was kind of like what happened in the 70s when they let Spielberg and Lucas and Coppola and all those guys, they're like, we don't know what the kids want. You guys go all out and we'll give you the money. And that's basically how all that cool originality. And now we're going to get to that place as well. I have to ask you, so let's say a filmmaker wants to start this process. I got a project. What do I do? How do I start this whole process like what you did?
Well, you got to learn. You got to take the time to learn Web3, right? That's the thing is you have to, and there's a lot of people that hate it. Okay. I see vitriol in people's posts, especially when celebrities post about it. Like our artist who did our art is a very popular artist online. She's got a big following. She's been around for a long time. She's an incredible talent. Sveta Shavina. She did our NFT designs. And when she posts about it, like there's so many people that are like, oh, NFTs, like I hate you, like just vitriol. And so I would just encourage anyone to like kind of try to look past that, look past the hype. There's a lot of crazy hype. We hear these stories about apes, JPEGs selling for millions and millions of dollars. And it's just like, what? And explore what the technology is. That's the first step, is exploring, getting involved, jump into our Discord, just meet the people in there, talk, like try to take the time to learn it. It's probably one of the best investments that you can make in the world today.
Understanding the Web3 space, but also then just getting a general understanding of blockchain, getting a general understanding of crypto. If you don't want to read, there's a ton of documentaries, really great docs about this.
YouTube videos are the best.
Oh, there's tons.
That's our matrix. That's like plug in the back of your head and just like get the freaking download. It's like everything is culminated for us to just like have this leap, this quantum leap as a society between blockchain, communication, those YouTube videos. I've learned so much from YouTube videos. If you can just be your own algorithm and like kind of search what you need and put good keywords and find, and then you get all the info that you need. That's how I did a lot of my education in this space, was YouTube videos.
Yeah, and there's documentaries on YouTube about these spaces as well that just kind of like feed you. You know, you watch 30-minute doc on blockchain, and they're well produced too, because I watched all of them. I literally watched almost everything. I literally went and for 3 weeks, I went down the rabbit hole on crypto and down the rabbit hole on blockchain, and really tried to, and I read books about it, and I really tried to understand what was going on with it, because it just seemed so exciting. And then I was like, okay, we're not there yet. But it's just like the internet circa 1990s, man. It will get there. We see it. It'll get there much faster than the internet. It'll get there much faster than streaming did.
I think when you see what people are building in the space and the amount of value that's being created around projects,
right?
I think the creation phase is here. And I think it's just the early adopters are going to have a leg up because they're in there building, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there are certain brands, many that are being established in the space, that are going nowhere. They're going to be here for a long time. So yeah, I think it's happening.
Now I'm going to ask you a few questions. I ask all my guests, sir. What advice would you give a filmmaker trying to break into the business today?
You have to put all of yourself into it. You can't dip your toe in. You really want to do it, you have to go all
in. What is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film industry or in life?
Make sure you have a really solid second act.
Nice. This is, as you get older, you start thinking about the second act. You mean like in life or in the actual project?
Both.
And 3 of your favorite films of all time?
Godfather 1, Godfather 2.
That counts as 1.
I agree. Thank you. Oh man, I don't know. Apocalypse Now is coming to mind. It's all Coppola stuff. And then I don't know what's the third. It's impossible to say. I guess Easy Rider was very informative. It was like a big part of my life, even though I wouldn't call it my favorite film. But
it's one of those movies that when you watch it, it hits you. Especially if
that's the independent spirit. Like that charged me as a young man.
That was the movie that scared the hell out of the studios when that came out, and that was like a $300,000 or $400,000 movie or something like that at the time, and it was done completely independently. It made millions, and the studios were like making Heaven's Gate. Yeah. Like making complete bombs. And like, wait a minute, we gotta let these kids know what they're doing. Let them go off. So, and where can people find out more about your NFTs and what you guys are doing with Flinch?
FlinchTheMovie.com is probably the best source, or our Twitter, Flinch NFT.
Cameron, it's been a pleasure talking NFTs and crypto and blockchain and all sorts of geekiness with you today, brother. Thank you again, man. I appreciate you coming on the show and helping, hopefully inspire some other filmmakers to go down this space, because it is an exciting space. And that's why I keep doing episodes about different aspects and different ways people are using it, because it's not just one way. There's multiple ways you can use this technology to make your movie. So I appreciate you, my friend.
Dude, I appreciate you and all that you do. I love the hustle, and really glad to be here.